Subtle skills, big results.
Welcome to the Ninja Selling Podcast. Welcome back to the Ninja Selling Podcast. Matt and Garrett are back with you again. We have a fun topic we're going to kick around today, as we do always as you jump into this podcast. If you're wondering where in the world did this all come from, what is Matt and Garrett talking about? Ninja Selling is where our background lies. You can go to ninjaselling.com, learn about all upcoming events, learn about what the systems are. And if you know the systems and you know Ninja and you're like, I really wish I could take this to my business in the next level to help me have the best year I could ever have, we have an amazing group of coaches. I run the coaching department there, and you are welcome to come and talk to us about that at any time, and we can help find you the right coach as we are heading into 2024. With that being said, Matt, and our podcast group on Facebook is literally right at 14,000 people right now. And I want to say thank you to everybody, because I remember when we first started that and I was like, oh, look, people want to be part of this group. And now we're sitting at 14,000 people.
Incredible.
Super excited about that. And Matt, good morning. Thank you, sir.
Good morning. Thank you as well, man. Always a pleasure to be here. We have a fun topic today, kind of a quick hit kind of conversation, but very important. And I think something that people will be able to build right into their business so that they can, well, maybe attract some more listings, maybe perform better with their listings, and just have better real estate conversations with their people out there, which is obviously an important part about what we do. Sometimes we forget, like, hey, being a trusted advisor and showing up and having quality real estate conversations is also incredibly important to what we do, and helps with your overall brand awareness and helps with you elevating in someone's mind as their trusted advisor. So excited about it, man.
Well, yeah. So as we jump into this, inventory is one of the things we're going to be talking about today. I've had so many conversations this last week where people have said things like, wow, we're starting to see inventory come up. We're starting to have different conversations with our clients. If any of you listening to this have been a realtor probably since about 2017 till about now, which is a lot of you out there, you really have not had to deal with stagnant or standing inventory for very long. There's a lot of skills that we have in Ninja that we've had to shelf. We've had to kind of take them and put, in our classes and our teachings and our discussions, because they're just not pertinent to the time. They're not valuable to you at that moment in time. So what we have is we have this big warehouse with many, 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 many items back in there. And these are one of the ones that we've shelved for a while. And the more, Larry and I have been talking, Matt and I have been talking, the coaches, we all get together every week and we talk about what we're seeing and what we're doing. And consistently with the coaches, we're saying to ourselves, we got to start unpacking some of these systems that have been kind of put away here for a little while. And then I had a couple big eye-opening conversations this last week with coaches saying things to me like, I really need to sit down and strengthen my listing presentation. I need to strengthen my understanding of the marketplace right now. I need to strengthen my pre-listing. Oh my gosh, the word can't even come out of my mouth. What is it? Pre-listing interview?
Pre-listing packet?
Thank you.
Or the pre-listing
Thanks
interview.
for the help on that. Pre-listing interview.
No problem. I was like,
well, where is he going?
Get it out.
Just say the words, dude. And then the other one that came up was, again, this inventory piece. And it was really interesting to start to dissect the inventory with the agent I was talking with, because the more and more I asked more questions, it wasn't just inventory was starting to pick up or we're starting to see more inventory. It was a division of different price ranges in different segments of the market that were screaming fast, really moving quickly. And a lot of that was the upper end. And then there was a lower side of that market, which was sitting. And this was where I started to say, you got to start to know your numbers, because you're going to have different conversations with different people about what they're up against and how you're going to get them from point A to point B. That's where I brought this to you, Matt. And I'm excited to kind of kick this around. We've had this topic before. You can go search in the archives and you will find this topic way back there. And it's I was kind of smiling as we're like, oh, and we're back.
Well, and we'll talk about it in a little bit different ways. So it's not the same conversation, but when it comes to inventory, like there's knowing what the inventory is, and there's also having a interpretation of how that impacts the way a listing might perform as you're getting something ready to market. how that conversation and how you explain it to a seller might help them have the clarity to make the appropriate decision of what they need to do with pricing or condition of a home. Because remember, this is one thing that sometimes we forget is that we control the process, they control the decisions, and the price of the home, the condition of the home, the availability of the home to show it are all decisions that the seller makes. We get to guide that. And a lot of times they'll yield to, hey, our opinion, but they make the decision because it is their product. And understanding the inventory, the flow of inventory, which also, and inventory is not just the supply as well. A lot of people think, oh, well, that's just like the new listings coming on and everything. But that also connects with the demand, the realized demand of how that inventory is leaving the market. But also, how does changes of inventory impact this unseen demand, right? I was having this conversation yesterday, Garrett, with a client about the standard supply and demand charts, right? So you have like your typical supply and demand chart with the lines and stuff. And in a normal widget type marketplace, like we can kind of control the supply if we're the manufacturer and adjust these things. And demand kind of then follows based on a whole number of things. But in real estate, like supply and demand can change instantaneously almost, because the quality of supply and the quality of demand are very important when you're looking at inventory, right? Is there quality inventory on the market? And when I say that, is it the type of inventory that buyers want to buy? Or are these homes that are just on the market? They're not presented very well. And that's why they're, quote, sitting. Or maybe that's a tough price range for the buyers, the demand out there, the quality of demand doesn't have the buying power based on interest rates and things like that.
I remember a while back we saw, talk about quality of supply. And I remember there was a moment up in Seattle. This is where this market just is standing out to me at the moment, where they had a ton of people throw homes on the market and they were like, this is my chance to sell this house. This is the house that backs to the freeway, backs to the railroad tracks, it has the power lines running straight over the top of it, has got all kinds of those things that's like, like, okay, like for the right price, this will work. Well, there was a point in that market, the inventory was so low that like all these types of properties hit the marketplace. And it was just like, yeah, there's inventory out there. But no, like, there are people trying to move the dogs of the properties out there. The ones that there's like, we just got to get them through. Then again, it wasn't every one of them, but they were like, we're seeing a lot of these right now. And when you were saying that, the quality of the inventory, I totally get it. The other thing you said is flow. And I think the best graph I ever saw with this, it came out of a Ninja. Focus First has actually taken this graph and this picture and run with it. And it's the picture of a pond. We call it the pond. And what happens with the inventory that comes through the pond is, if in most ponds, you have an inlet, you have an outlet, and you've got the water sitting in the middle of it. And the inlet in this pond, or if we talk about the MLS, is all the properties entering the marketplace right now. They're the brand new, fresh properties dropping into the marketplace. And the outlet is all the properties that are leaving. They're all the sold properties. They're the ones heading out the door. In this pond, you have layers. You have the nice fresh ones that have come in and they're floating across the top of the pond. Just below it, you have a group of inventory that has come in. They were fresh. They were new at one point. And now instead of flowing out, they've now settled one layer down. And they're probably still getting showings, maybe a little bit. There's activity happening around them, but typically this is the realtor. You know, when you have one like this, when you're walking around going, nobody's writing offers. We're getting showings, but we're not getting any offers. Like, I don't know what's going on. You've dropped down into this second section down, and then there's a whole bunch of inventory in the marketplace, especially as inventory starts to grow, that falls into the very bottom part of this pond. And you all know this. If any of you have gone and walked into a pond in your life, and the farther you go out, there's this really thick, soft mud that's a little bit farther out, kind of squishes between your toes. This is where those properties are sitting. And this is where all we're discussing is inventory right now. Like, this is where those properties are sitting in the marketplace. They are direct competition with all the properties that are there, usually online. But they're typically not getting showings and they're not getting offers. They're just stagnant inventory in the marketplace. Nobody wants to look at them anymore. We all know that property exists, but we don't want to take our buyers to go see it because it's overpriced. That's the one with the ugly carpet. That's the one that has the broken skylights in it. That's one, whatever it is. This one falls down into that stagnant mass area. And with this being said, I think as inventory starts to grow, we haven't had to analyze our inventory like this and understand which properties are sitting where and what we're in direct competition with. Because the ones that are the flowing across the top, those are the ones you got to pay attention to the most. And the ones that are outgoing, that's the best explanation of what's happening in this marketplace right now. But that, I know I'm talking a lot, Matt, but that flow piece of it tells us a lot of, there's a inventory level, which we all look at as what is the inventory, and then there's the absorption.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just use the absorption number to find the inventory, but the absorption number is so important because that tells me how many are flowing across that top and going out the other side. We are absorbing out the backside of this pond this many properties per month, or exiting that many per month. So there's a lot to look at here if you want to be an educated realtor in a marketplace that's starting to gain some inventory.
There is. And I'm glad you highlighted the pond, because this is a great depiction and a great way to kind of visualize and get away from average days on market, average this. Because when you start looking at even median days, I mean, median's always a better number to look at than average because you can start to remove some of the outliers. But a lot of times we'll be like, well, the average days on market is this, so we can wait to have these discussions. And it's like, but those outliers that have been sitting on the market for so long, like that's pulling that average. Now it's the ones that close too, because here's the other thing, how you process your data is important. When we look at average days on market, we're usually looking at average days on market for sold properties. Well, what about the ones that are still there? That's not being factored in. But if those do go under contract and close, that's going to pull your average in one direction. And if we're paying attention to that, we might be too late in having conversations with our sellers, or we might just not be giving them a clear picture of what it might take for them to achieve their goal. But if you look at the pond and you start kind of saying, okay, this top layer is kind of these days on market, this middle layer is maybe like this days on market. Now you can visually show your sellers, hey, here's the marketplace we're playing in. Where do you want to be?
Yeah.
Right? And then you can look at absorption rate positioning, which we've talked about. And we say, okay, well, what are the things that we need to adjust in order to boost us out of this middle ground of getting showings but no offers and up to the top part of this pond where we can gain a contract? And that's the conversations that'll help you find clarity so that your sellers make good decisions.
Well, and I think it's a really, when you explain it to your clients of this is what's going to happen as this property kind of enters this playground, this pond as it comes into it, you now can have an educated conversation of like, okay, where are we right now? But I think it's also fun where they can say, well, what about this property? And what about this property? And it's fun to be able to take them and say, well, currently right now they've been on the market for this many days.
There it is. This is where it is in the pond.
Yeah, they've been on for this many days. They're not getting offers. Currently right now, are they in the flow across the top where they're receiving showings and offers? Are they in the middle section where they're receiving showings but no offers? Are they in the bottom where they're just sitting there? Now, I can tell you, I talked to the agent yesterday. They haven't had a showing in 2 weeks. Let's stick them down here. They're not really our direct competition, and we got to be careful that we don't play their game because we can end up down there too. In a marketplace that is gaining inventory or has inventory, you need to be aware of this because sometimes you'll blink and you're going to go, crap. Like we ended up down here. Like, how did we do this? But it's also, how can we fix it now? How can we get us out? And this is, Matt, this is where it gets interesting because you'll hear agents say things like, maybe we should pull it off, reset the timer, and send it back in. And if you want the visual, you're literally sending it back in the top of the pond again. But we have history now. When I sold real estate, we didn't have history. You couldn't look up when was the last time it was on the market, how many days it was on the market. At least you could, but it was really difficult. They provide all that information now.
What's fascinating about that, like, honestly, like, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because you could pull it off and reset it at the top of the pond. But the fact is, you're still on the market for that many days.
It's still
because whether a buy, it's not going to change a buyer's perspective on it. Now, there is something to be said about refreshing listings and certain things and doing things with marketing. I totally understand that. But ultimately, the seller has still been on the market for that many days. Whether you pull the listing and refresh it or not, the seller has still been in the pond for that long. That hasn't changed.
So here, let's go back to the meat of this, Matt, then, which is don't ever have a strategy of if we miss the market, we can do this and save it in this way. Do your homework up front, really analyze the market, really do the homework on this property and understanding your client, because that's the moment that you're going to be able to help them understand exactly what they need to do to be successful. So they're never in that scenario. You want to be the highest rated, most talked about realtor out there. Put yourself in that position so that you're never having to deal with that.
And if you are understanding the inventory, if you're doing the research on the data, you can have these conversations up front with your sellers combined with the goals that they're looking to achieve.
Yep.
So that they make good decisions up front. I think a lot of the times sellers they don't necessarily have full clarity on all the information. And sometimes it's because the realtor may not have full clarity. And I think you do have to factor seasonality into this, which means as a listing agent, this is where the work comes in, calling other listing agents and seeing if we can get information about the other showings and things like that. So we can say, is this a seasonality thing? Is this a demand change that we need to figure out because we can't actually see or quantify the unrealized demand, all the buyers that are running around out there determining whether they want to see properties or not or write contracts? Because that will then help you frame the discussion with your seller as well and match it with their goals. And I just think the more you know this stuff, Garrett, and kind of like before we started recording, we were talking about just the more you know, the better conversations you can have, and it highlights you even better as a trusted advisor to these people you're having conversations with.
Well, and so we've talked about this a lot. When the marketplace was really screaming, one of the conversations we would have is people would say, okay, as a buyer's agent, like, how do I help my clients win contracts? How do we help them win these homes that they want? And the number one conversation that we would have, or the ideas or thoughts we would have, is you got to build strong relationships with the realtors that you're working with. And I'm going back to 2008, 2009. There was a realtor that I was good friends with back then. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but he was a ninja named Nate Bowie. And I remember one of Nate's strategies, every day he would talk to 5 real estate agents. That was his thing. It's part of his day. He would pick up the phone. He would call out to 5 different realtors throughout the day, check in with them. What are you seeing in the marketplace? What's going on right now? And there's a lot of people that I remember would hear him do that. And they'd be like, oh my gosh, like, you do what? Like, that's a lot of work and he's like, I know everything that's going on. Everything. I know the properties that are seeing activity. I know, and he goes, and then I have now this unbelievable trust with these other real estate agents. So they're not just going like, when you say, hey, what's happening? They're listening, oh, it's great. We're awesome. Like, things are just like, they're not blowing smoke. They're literally going like, oh, Nate, man, I can't even get a showing on that property right now. Like, what are you seeing out there? Like, they're honestly sharing what their experiences of this marketplace, which is allowing him to be a better realtor to his people, because he can sit back and say, that house over there hasn't had a showing in 2 weeks. And that's the reason we don't want to play around with the property like that. The more you know, the more you can hit the property correctly up front, the better results you're going to be able to get for your people. I think it's actually one of the dangers, Matt, in the marketplace that we're even in right now. I keep hearing reports of large amounts of offices that really have had 1 or no closings per agent in 2023. Like, I keep hearing about this.
Yeah.
And it's hard for the consumer to know who's had a transaction, who's actually helped somebody buy or sell real estate in the last 12 months, and who's done 50 homes in the last 12 months. The consumers don't really get to play in this. They just go hire a real estate agent. There's power in being a realtor that's been doing transactions, that has their hand in the field. And whether you are loaded with listings, loaded with buyers right now, or you choose to educate yourself by your fellow realtors, is 2 totally different things. And if you choose to educate yourself, when that client comes into your hands, you are going to be totally prepared to be able to help them get to where they want to go. Just don't sit around and try to get ready for it when they show up in your world. That's the practicing on the client. All of a sudden, like, what game are we playing? Oh, it's basketball? Oh, damn it, I don't even have the right jersey. Hold on a second. Let me go get my stuff out of my bag. Like, we don't want to be in that moment of figuring out what game we're playing in the moment when we're with that client. get educated now. Start figuring out your marketplace.
Yeah, great point. You mentioned too, there's a lot of offices that have agents that have done deals, and like, yeah, transaction volume's down, right? And that is an element of inventory. That said, that doesn't hinder the ability for a marketplace to flow, right? And this is where you as an agent, like, you're right. The more you figure out to understand this so you can have more transactions, like, your status goes up, you gain market share. And yeah, the end result might be you gain more market share and some agents leave the industry over the next year or so. Good for you. So you can protect yourself.
And the only reason I shared the whole, who's had closings and kind of what we're seeing out here right now is it's not it's not a reason to be fearful of the marketplace, because we're watching the people that have the relationships have the best years they've ever had. I'm not worried about, is there business out there? I think there's actually a crazy amount of business out there. It's just showing up differently than what we've seen it in a while. And if you know what you're looking for, the business is there. The win in your back pocket is there's a lot of agents out there who have not done a transaction recently, and they don't understand the marketplace, and they haven't had to go figure it out because they don't stay educated. They only get educated when the moment shows up for them. And then the moment's not there, they're sitting back going, man, I can't wait till I have a deal that I can help somebody. And the minute somebody shows up, they go, oh, okay, let me get all prepared for my listing presentation. Let's get prepared for this buyer that we're working with now. Where they could have been being prepared, for the last 6 months.
Well, and I'll say, if you're one of those agents, because here's the thing, you don't want to also lean on the opinions of agents that haven't done deals of like, oh, the marketplace is slow, all these agents haven't done deals. No, talk to the agents that are doing deals. And if you're one of these agents that hasn't done a deal or is not doing a lot of deals, talk to the agents that are doing deals. Talk to the agents that have listings, and you don't need to have a listing opportunity in order to go gather information to have knowledge. Don't wait for the listing opportunity. Have the conversations now. Understand the inventory. Where do you want to have listings? Go talk to the agents that have those listings and ask them how it's going so you understand that marketplace. There's always a good time. It is always a good time, I should say, to gather information and build your knowledge, because when the conversations happen, if you don't have the knowledge, it's too late. You want the knowledge before the conversations happen.
I have a vision of like a graph. I could probably make a graph for any real estate market or any real estate office. If I look back to the office that I used to sell real estate in, I could very, very easily create like a heat graph. Okay, when this agent tells me what they're seeing in the marketplace, I need to take that seriously. We're going to give that agent a red color because that's serious. When they talk, that's serious. I need to pay attention. Now we have this one down here, and we're going to give them I was going to say green. Green kind of means go, but I was going to go, we'll get them a green color. It's one of those, like, just take it for what it is. They're not active in the marketplace. They're not doing a ton of business. Their opinion of what's happening right now, I just need to kind of take with a grain of salt. Listen to it, hear it, but their experience of the marketplace may not be accurate. So don't give it too much weight. I think it's really important to surround yourself with the people, or to spend the most amount of time with the ones that when you ask questions, you're like, I got to pay attention to the answer that they're going to give me, because they have an insight. They're active. They're doing stuff out here. They're making deals come together. You just need to kind of be prepared to what you'll listen, because a lot of times, if you think about water cooler talk, and we always sit there and go like, oh, all the agents are talking around the water cooler. It's not usually the highest producing agents in the office, the top ranked agents that are standing around the water cooler having these conversations. It's typically the ones that are going, let me tell you about my client. Oh, let me tell you about the deal that I had. And they're all kind of standing there, talking about all the struggles of this inventory and struggles of the marketplace right now. Go surround yourself around some players. You'll be amazed. All of a sudden, you're going to be like, oh my gosh. And it's funny. The players, when I bring up this idea that there's people out here that are having a tough year, the players go, where do you find these people? I'm like, well, they come to us looking for help. And she's like, they're like, I don't even see them. I'm like, because you're hanging around players. That's just the way it works.
Great point.
So
know your inventory.
Know your inventory.
Build your knowledge.
Know your knowledge?
I love it. No, build your knowledge.
Oh, build your knowledge. I thought you said know your knowledge. Like, that's a good one. That's a quote. Know your knowledge.
Yeah. You can stamp it.
Matt and Garrett.
We'll put it on a Cutco knife.
Well, that's both of us. We should get our names on that together. It's a combination. Know your knowledge.
Know your knowledge.
All right.
Well, man. Well, Garrett, thanks for bringing this topic, man. This has been great. Hope you all have enjoyed it and appreciate all of you for showing up for this podcast episode after episode. Love hearing from all you guys as well. Thank you for being an incredible community of listeners. And if you're not in our Facebook community, head over to Facebook and search for the Ninja Selling Podcast. You'll find that amazing community right there. And if you want to learn more about ninja selling, if you're new to ninja and you're like, hey, this podcast is getting great, how do I get more out of ninja? Search for the Ninja Selling book by Larry Kendall and head over to ninjaselling.com where you can learn about the training, our coaching, and all the wonderful things associated with ninja. But I guess that's it for us today. And we'll see you on the next episode, or we'll talk to you on the next episode. You'll hear us on the next episode. I'll see you though, Garrett.
Yeah. Before we leave, I would like to give a special shout out to Matt's contractors. They've been with us throughout this entire episode today. And it's been a pleasure having the saws and the hammering and the chiseling and the
contractor, just one.
Oh, contract. He really is doing a great job. He sounds like many contractors working. He's really doing an incredible job. So Matt, thank you for bringing them into the episode today.
My pleasure.
Make sure you give them
my pleasure. Yeah. Cutting through an exterior wall today. So that's kind of a big deal. So
make sure you give them a shout out to me. Let them know how much I appreciate them. And
totally will.
Have a great one, everybody. Matt, thank you as always. It's fun hanging out with you.
Take care, y'all.
If you enjoyed today's episode and would like more, visit us at theninjasellingpodcast.com.
There you will also find links for more information about ninja selling and coaching. Have an incredible day.